Wakanda Forever marks the end of Marvel's MCU Phase 4 post-blip era, and the roadmap for Marvel from here on out is a winding one. So here are the main differences between the MCU and their comic book counterparts that you might have missed. I'm Joey C. Let's go! Black Widow takes us back to Natasha Romanoff's childhood, or lack thereof. We learn about the infamous Red Room Project, where she and other young women were trained to become cold, uncaring assassins at an early age. The girls in the program underwent physical, psychological, and biochemical experimentations to be the perfect spies. But it's never been shown that Black Widow has any powers that would make her superhuman. However, in the comics, she does possess a few superhuman abilities. She was given an implant that keeps her looking younger for much longer than a normal person. She also has enhanced speed, physical recovery, and heightened reflexes. Turns out that Captain America isn't the only Avenger that keeps their youthful appearance years longer than average. Black and Cap don't crack, baby. The theme of Black Widow is unfinished business. Well, that and Q Vin Diesel, family. Natasha Romanoff seeks to destroy the program that created her, and along the way, we're introduced to the MCU's first iteration of the Taskmaster. In Black Widow, the Taskmaster is gender swapped to be Antonia Dreykov, the brainwashed daughter of the creator of the Red Room, Ivan Dreykov. But the Taskmaster's comic book origin is almost completely different. The Taskmaster in the comics is Tony Masters, who was born with the ability to mimic the movement of others. Tony had photographic reflexes to a degree that he could mimic any movement, and we mean any movement. NBA players, cowboys, jugglers, you name it. Tony would grow up to become an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and was given the option to use the version of the super serum that would allow him to instantly assimilate knowledge. This, mixed with his photographic reflexes, would give him the ability that would make him legendary. However, later it turns out that the serum had serious side effects. Instead of instantly and infinitely retaining knowledge, it gave him a form of amnesia, causing him to forget almost everything up to his S.H.I.E.L.D. training. He took up the alter ego of the Taskmaster, became a mercenary for hire, and the rest is history. In the comics, Shang-Chi is not the son of the Mandarin, but the son of Fu Manchu, who was a villain in his own right. The Mandarin was a descendant of Genghis Khan in feudal China, whose high-born father married a low-born English woman. His parents died, and he was raised by his bitter aunt, who was angry that his birth ruined their family fortune. She raised him to be a villain and to hate the world. The guy was literally raised to be a hater. One day, walking through the Forbidden Valley, he stumbled upon a spaceship, which ran on 10 magical rings, like the Infinity Stones. He uses the spaceship's log to learn that each ring has a unique power, and then used those rings to amass an empire. And you want to know just how evil he is? Well, in the comics, all this backstory is given as an exposition by the Mandarin while he has Iron Man tied up. He basically told him his whole life story against his will. No means no, man. Tony could be the first superhero to be successfully bored to death. Now that's torture. Shang-Chi entered the MCU with a bang, and there's speculation as to what he'll do next. Typically, when a film grosses over 2.5 times its budget, film studios tend to make a sequel. Thankfully, Shang-Chi has a wealth of source material to draw from. One of the more interesting stories of Shang-Chi that would be great to put to film is how he once joined the Heroes for Hire. In the Civil War comic book saga, Shang-Chi was recruited by the Misty Knight to help the Heroes for Hire out in Harlem to fight the Mandarin's avatars. Given the fact that Marvel has several characters from their various shows cross paths and team up like in the Defenders, it's not beyond the pale to see Shang-Chi and the heroes of Hell's Kitchen working together in the future. She-Hulk Attorney at Law's pilot reveals that Jennifer receives her powers while visiting her cousin Bruce Banner. They're involved in a car accident. Some of Bruce's blood gets into one of Jennifer's open wounds, and it's about as gross as it sounds. Since the two are related, and their DNA is relatively similar, a short training montage ensues, and the big, green, lean, legal machine is born. But her comic book origin story is a bit darker than that. In the comics, Jennifer is working for a client who has mob ties. Rival mobsters are following her on a day when her cousin coincidentally decides to visit her law firm. They're attacked by the mobsters. Bruce saves her, but must give her an emergency blood transfusion as a result of the ambush, and in the heat of the moment, he completely forgets about his whole unstoppable green golem blood. You know, because he's a scientist, so Yeah, slight difference. One of the best moments of the first season of She-Hulk Attorney at Law was the reintroduction of a fan-favorite character to the MCU. Matt Murdock shows up as the defense attorney of one of Jennifer's plaintiff clients, and the two hit it off rather quickly. They later find out that they have more in common than they first assumed, as they discover each other's hidden talents. One of the episodes ends spectacularly with Daredevil taking a delightfully barefoot walk of shame through the streets of Hell's Kitchen. But alas, this is a liberty that the showrunners decided to take that doesn't exist in the comics. Although She-Hulk has been romantically linked with Tony Stark, Luke Cage, and Hercules, Matt Murdock and Jennifer Walters never exchanged any legal briefs in between the comic book pages. Marvel's Moon Knight comes with a few creative liberties taken on the character. Along with blackouts and a British accent, Mark Spector also has an estranged wife on the show. Layla is an Egyptian archaeologist with a knack of showing up just in the nick of time to help her husband out of a jam while he's stuck inside his own head. I mean, you have to admit it, it's refreshing to see a female character that isn't your typical helpless damsel in distress. Because even a moon-powered Egyptian demigod needs a little help sometimes. In Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Shuri must take it upon herself to protect her kingdom, as she takes up the mantle and responsibility of the Black Panther. But even though in both the film and the comics, Shuri becomes the protector of Wakanda, the transition occurs under different circumstances though. In the Black Panther comics, the king falls into a coma after a battle, so it falls upon Shuri to take the heart-shaped herb and get herself suited up to fight her enemies. Luckily for her, that suit is one size fits all. Namor is probably the most appropriate name for his character, given the fact that he has more names than most comic book heroes. Known as the Feathered Serpent God, Namor has undergone an ancient Central American makeover in this iteration. The choice to make him this way is both inclusive and respectful to the culture, and it just works. But this is a far cry from the comic book origin. In the comics, Namor is like Aquaman in that he is the king of Atlantis, wields a trident, and he's half human. However, the MCU's Namor has two human parents, but was exposed to the aquatic version of the heart-shaped herb, giving him his aquatic powers. In the comic books and on film, Namor can fly, has superhuman strengths, durability, agility, and reflexes. But in the comics, he's fireproof, which cannot be said about his appearance in the MCU. Namor can also communicate telepathically, which he does in Wakanda Forever, but it's unexplained in the film. The Eternals have watched over this planet for millions of years, so for those of you that feel this movie is a bit of a drag, you're just not getting the director's subtle way of making you feel what the Eternals went through during their time on Earth in between threats. The Eternals all have a unique set of superhuman skills and abilities that complement each other to help them defeat their sworn enemies, the Deviants. Some might say that the Eternals' special abilities look similar to a certain league of superheroes working together for justice, but in the comics, their powers are all the same. Everyone has the standard superhero set of powers like strength, stamina, and speed. But they also have even more powerful abilities, such as telepathy and manipulation of matter. Another big change from the comics to the film are the eternal enemies, the Deviants. In the comics, the Deviants are an evolutionary offshoot of mankind, who are monsters that still possess superhuman intelligence and abilities. This gives them a level of complicity, making their characters diverse and unique. But in the film, they're quite the opposite. They seem to be much more animalistic in nature, without any intellect or agency, until they seek out to destroy the Eternals. The heroes and villains are flip-flopped in the comics. The Eternals are similar in nature, and the Deviants are unique, versus the film, where the Eternals are unique and the Deviants are something of a hive mind. They also have no relation to humanity in the film, and have the sole motivation of bringing the Eternals to an end. Falcon and the Winter Soldier tackles life after Captain America. Now that Steve Rogers has been honorably discharged and has earned some well-deserved R&R, Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes are responsible for filling his rather large boots. Sam has the special burden of becoming the new Captain America, and the inevitable task of trying to figure out how to use that famous shield in combat. Seriously, that thing does not follow the law of physics whatsoever. And nobody has written an instruction manual in over 75 years. Somebody get this man a diagram, for God's sakes. But Sam Wilson's Falcon is much different from how he's portrayed in the Marvel comic book series. In the comics, Sam Wilson has a superpower that allows him to communicate with birds. In fact, in the comic book series, Red Wing is the actual Falcon's sidekick, with whom he has a psychic bond. But in the MCU, he has an unmanned drone that pops out of his wingsuit, giving him added versatility on the battlefield.
Wow, this is awesome. Captain America.
The Winter Soldier, Falcon's new partner in crime fighting, is back from his deprogramming in Wakanda and ready to redeem himself for the things he did as a brainwashed sleeper cell used for Russian espionage. Bucky wrestles with the horrendous actions he's committed while under the programming of Baron Zemo, giving his character some added depth. One of the more serious actions Bucky has to come to terms with is his part in the demise of Tony Stark's parents. In Civil War, the Winter Soldier causes an accident which claims the lives of Howard and Maria Stark, but in the comic book series, that is not the case. Although the Winter Soldier claimed countless lives, and Bucky struggles with the horrible things he was forced to do against his will, the blood of Stark's family is not on his hands. In an ironic character trait swap, Steve Rogers isn't the one looking up to Bucky. Instead of the scrawny and painfully skinny character that has Bucky to protect him, it's actually the other way around for this fairly odd couple in the comics. Bucky Barnes is an orphaned military brat who is chosen to be Cap's sidekick and to do all the unsavory missions that Captain America couldn't be seen doing. He's a much younger man who's eager to prove himself, a far cry from his MCU depiction. It is said that 1 in 10 romantic relationships start at work. That is true in both the Marvel Comics and the MCU, and probably with much better odds. We've witnessed the romantic relationships of Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, Ant-Man and Wasp, and Natasha Romanoff and Bruce Banner on screen in the MCU. But one love affair that doesn't make it to the film was that of Black Widow and the Winter Soldier. Since both characters were brainwashed to become Russian super soldiers that ultimately ended up as agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it makes sense that these two would hit it off. I mean, it seems like they have a lot in common.
That suit did nothing for your ass.
No one asked you to look, Tony.
WandaVision is the simple love story of an omnipotent, telekinetic, super mutant, and a highly intelligent cybernetic humanoid robot inside her mental projection that has taken over a small town. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, but WandaVision isn't based on any one comic. It's the collection of a few different stories. In the comics, Wanda and Vision do develop a serious romantic relationship, and their spin-off series is what gives WandaVision the plot points it uses on screen. In a spin-off series called Vision and the Scarlet Witch, Vision and Wanda are married and have 2 twin boys named Thomas and William. And how does that work actually? Vision is made mostly of vibranium, so where does he get the genetic material to pass on an offspring? You know what? Never mind. Comic books, magic, that's all fine and dandy. Already, let's move on. Later on in the storyline, Vision is destroyed for being a threat to the world, and the OG Ant-Man puts him back together again. However, Vision loses his memory and all connection to his family, similar to White Vision depicted in the show. Another storyline from the comics, Wanda uses her powers to shape reality to fill her every desire, killing various Avengers in the process, including Vision. Her ability to create her own reality is one of the major plot points of the show. All the neighbors in WandaVision are acting strange. We later find out that this is because they're under the control of the illusion of the Scarlet Witch, which has shrouded the town, and they're prisoners inside their own minds. But one neighbor not only seems to be fine with it, but seems to be enjoying it. We come to find out that this is because she is Agatha Harkness, one of the oldest witches from Salem. She's drawn to Wanda's incredible magic powers, and plays along with her visions, guiding her through her own memories to decipher where she draws her powers from. Agatha in the comics is more of a tutor to humans, and mutants who have been blessed or burdened with great magical powers. In one iteration of her comics, Agatha gets wind of a plot that her former master, Immortal, plans on imbuing Wanda with powers he wishes to manipulate. So Agatha works with the Avengers to stop him. Thanks a lot, Marvel. Ruin the idea of a fairy godmother for everyone, why don't you?
This drink, I like it. Another!
Loki, everyone's favorite mischievous little brother and anti-hero, is explored in further depths in his Disney spin-off show. Loki finds himself caught in lands between space and time, ultimately meeting several of his alter egos from different dimensions, even beginning a romantic relationship with the female version of himself. And you thought your ex was narcissistic. Loki, the Norse god of mischief, has superhuman strengths and durability to go along with his ability to change his appearance. His durability was famously on display in the first Avengers film, where he's Hulk slammed all over Iron Man's penthouse suite. But Loki in the comics is far more powerful than he's portrayed in film and television. Loki's magical powers is greatly underplayed in the MCU. He's the most powerful sorcerer in the entire Marvel Universe, far more powerful than Doctor Strange. Phase 4 of the MCU has given us comic book fans tons to consume and critique. Since Iron Man and Thanos made their exit, with great power comes great responsibility, and Marvel has taken it upon itself to continue the wild ride they started over a decade ago, adding twists and turns we'd never see coming along the way. We look forward to everything that the MCU's Phase 5 has to offer.